Hello children, let me welcome you to the virtual class of the Brihan Mumbai Mahanagar Palika. My name is Shraddha teacher. Children, we are in the middle of this COVID-19 pandemic, and because of that we are not able to go to school, but that doesn't mean we are going to stop learning. So we are going to do many lessons which are very interesting from your textbook through the virtual class here. So let us do a lesson in English today. So children, today let us start doing a lesson in standard 7th English, and the name of the lesson is lesson number 4.3, the red-headed league part 1. So if you have your textbooks, you can please open it to page number 86, and there you will see that this lesson is divided into two parts, that is the red-headed league part 1 and the red-headed league part 2. So we will be doing part 1 of this lesson today, and the name of the lesson is Mr. Wilson's Story. Alright, now look at the image which is there here on the screen, and also let me show you one more image. So what do you see here? You can see two people who are trying to find out something. So both of them have got a magnifying glass with them, and they seem to be doing something really very serious, isn't it? So who are these people? These people are people called as detectives. Okay, these detectives, they try to find out solutions to problems, or you can say they try to solve crimes. So you must have seen on TV also series like Crime Patrol, Savdhan India, even though children should not watch much of those, but they are detective series. That is when something wrong happens, when there is a crime which is committed. These people, the detectives, they try to find out who has done the crime. Alright, so today's story is going to be a detective story. Now, have you heard or have you seen detective stories earlier also? Yes, we have. We know of many characters who solve crimes. Okay, and we love many of them also. So come on, let's take a look at some detective characters. So detectives, what all work they do? When there is a murder, when there is a theft, these are the people who study the fingerprints, they study the footprints, and they help the police to arrest the criminal. So take a look at this picture. This is what all the things that these detectives they do. Now, which are the detective series that we know of, or which are the detective characters that we have grown up watching, or we know and we read books about them? Yes, let's start looking at their names. So we have Chacha Chaudhary, and Chacha Chaudhary is a detective who tries to solve many problems, and he is assisted by his assistant, that is Sabu. Alright, so you must have read comics based on Chacha Chaudhary, and there are cartoon films also based on Chacha Chaudhary on Cartoon Network. You can see series based on Chacha Chaudhary. Okay, so this is a very famous Indian detective who writes about stories for children. Indian detective stories for children, Chacha Chaudhary. What about some other detective stories for children that we have seen or we have read? Let's take a look. So yes, we have all heard and seen and read about Batman. Okay, so Batman had magical powers, and Batman could become like a bat and fly around the sky at night, and he used to take care of all the evil people in the city. Okay, so here we have Batman. Then you must have also read stories or seen movies about Spider-Man. So Spider-Man could also, like a spider, climb up on the walls. Alright, he could fly in the sky, and he also caught hold of many criminals and robbers and thieves. So these are all the detectives or the detective characters whom we know about. Now we're going to learn about a detective character on whom this story is based. That is, a lesson that we are going to learn today is based on this particular detective character. And what is his name? His name is Sherlock Holmes. Now Sherlock Holmes, he is a fictional private detective. Fictional means you cannot actually go out and search for Sherlock Holmes. He is not there.
Okay, he's just a character in a story. The same goes for Chacha Chaudhary, for Batman, for Spider-Man, Superman, etc. All these people are fictional in nature. Okay, they are imaginary people who was created by the British author Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. So there was a very famous British author who used to write stories. So this character, Sherlock Holmes, he is an imagination. He is a result of the imagination of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Okay, so that was about Sherlock Holmes. Now Sherlock Holmes used to solve many kind of mysteries. Okay, but he never used to do it alone. Then who else was there to help him? There was another person called Dr. Watson. So here you can in the picture you can see Sherlock Holmes also along with Dr. Watson. Now who was Dr. Watson? Dr. Watson was actually a doctor. Sherlock Holmes sometimes needs Dr. Watson's help and he is grateful for it also, especially in a dangerous situation. Now Dr. Watson, he had started out as a surgeon and Dr. Watson is the person who presents Sherlock Holmes biographies or stories. So he acts as Sherlock Holmes's biographer. That is, whatever stories are told by Dr. Watson. Okay, so he always writes the stories in such a way that me and Holmes, that is the way he writes the stories. Alright, so this is about Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. Both of them, remember, are imaginary characters. Okay, now together the two of them have solved many a crime. So Dr. Watson helps Sherlock Holmes, he gives him ideas, he advises him, he helps him, and when Sherlock Holmes is in danger, he also manages to save his life. So they are the best of friends. Okay, so now this is the background to the story. Now let us take a look at the story of the Red-Headed League. So the name of the story is The Adventure of the Red-Headed League. Okay, so now I will try and tell you the story in short. But before we see the story, let us look at the characters in this particular story, the Red-Headed League. And remember, we are going to look at the story in two parts. So in this video, we will see the first half of the story and a little bit of grammar. And in the next video, we'll see the remaining part of the story. Alright, so we will look at some of the characters which come up in this part of the story. So we have, of course, Sherlock Holmes. He is a clever detective who is interested in unusual and interesting cases. So whenever there is an unusual case, whenever there is a very interesting case, Sherlock Holmes immediately starts thinking about how to solve the case. And then you know who Dr. Watson is? Of course, he is Sherlock Holmes's best friend. Now we have two characters who are part of this particular story. So Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson are part of every story where Sherlock Holmes is there. Whereas in this particular story, we have a person called Mr. Jabez Wilson. So who's Mr. Jabez Wilson? He used to work in a particular company or something, but now he is the owner of a shop in London which is below his house. But then his business nowadays is not very good. Okay, that is, he's struggling in order to maintain his life. And then in this story, you will see there is another character about whom they are talking, that is Vincent Spaulding. So who's Vincent Spaulding? He is a man who works as an assistant in Mr. Wilson's shop. A very important thing about Vincent Spaulding that Mr. Wilson tells Sherlock Holmes is that this person, he is a very worker, he's a person who works very hard, he's very interested in his work, but also at the same time, he's very interested in photography. And he spends a lot of time in the cellar. Now what is a cellar? An underground room where he works to develop these photographs. Okay, so these are all the people who will appear in this particular part of the story. Let us move on and let us see how the story starts. So, Dr. Watson, once he steps into the home of his friend, the famous private detective Sherlock Holmes. Now, Watson is the story's narrator. I told you now, all the stories of Sir Sherlock Holmes is told by Dr. Watson. He finds Holmes deep in conversation with Jabez Wilson, a man who would be entirely unremarkable except for his blazing red hair. Now, I have not picked up the lines word by word from the textbook. I have tried to give you the meaning on my own. You can compare with what is written in the textbook. The meanings of the lines are the same. So, there is this man called Mr. Jabez Wilson sitting and talking to Holmes. Now, there is a very common features this man has got, except for his head full of blazing red hair. Now, see, in India, children, you will see people who have got black hair, and then the hair goes, when the people grow old, the hair goes grey. You do not have people who have brown hair or golden hair or red hair in our country, unless of course they dye their hair. But if you go to these foreign countries, especially to the European countries, like you will see that people have got red hair, people have got golden color hair, they're called blondes. Okay, so this person, Mr. Jabez Wilson, he had red color hair and blazing red. What is the meaning of blazing red? Blazing red means bright red color hair. So now they are talking to each other, and Dr. Watson just walks in, and they're talking about something. So what is this something? Wilson reveals that he is a pawnbroker, that is, he's a small businessman, and he has an assistant named Vincent Spaulding. So this is Vincent Spaulding. He is Mr. Wilson's assistant, or he helps Mr. Wilson in his shop. Now Mr. Wilson further says that Spaulding is a fine worker, although he is interested in photography and often goes alone into the basement of the shop to develop photos. So see, Spaulding is a very good worker, he is a very honest worker and all that, but he is very interested in photography. Here he keeps on clicking photographs, and then he goes into the basement to develop these photographs. Now, when we are talking about photos, when we are talking about cameras, let's take a look at the evolution of cameras. That is, the camera which you see in this picture, you might not see it around now. Okay, so let's see what kind of cameras were there in the ancient times or in the times when this story was written. So see here, this is how the camera started developing, and now we have these kind of digital cameras. So see, this second one is the one which is being used by Spaulding. So take a proper look, pause the video and take a proper look at the different kind of cameras that were. Okay, and now if you see today, we have such modern cameras which gives you instant pictures. Instant. So here you click a picture and there you get a print of the picture. See, look here. See, he's clicking a photo and he's getting the copy of the photo in his hand. So these are all instant cameras which are used in today's times. What about the ancient times? I just showed you. Okay. Anyways, this is not part of our story. This is just general knowledge for you. Let us take a look at what happened further in the story. So Spaulding drew Wilson's attention to an advertisement in a paper for the opening in the League of Red-Headed Men. So league means a group or an association or a gathering, okay, of red-headed men. Red-headed men means men with red hair. So there was some kind of advertisement in the newspaper about red-headed men, and Spaulding bought this newspaper and he showed it to Mr. Wilson. Now Mr. Wilson has bought the same newspaper to show to Holmes and Dr. Watson. So Dr. Watson also read the article in the newspaper. Okay, now in the newspaper it was said that there is a vacancy for a member of the league. and the salary is £4 a week for nominal services. So £4 is a big amount in those times. Nominal means very easy work. Red-headed men may apply in person. In person means they have to come personally. They cannot send someone, they cannot send an application. On Monday at 11 o'clock to Duncan Ross at the office of the league, 7 Fleet Street. So there is a person going to be called as Duncan Ross, who's going to be conducting the interviews for these red-headed men. So what happens? Mr. Wilson is very excited. Why? Because this person Spalding tells him that the league is a foundation which has been established by an eccentric. Eccentric means a person who's very, you can say, bindas, or someone who's a little bit mad, and wealthy American, to promote the interests of red-headed men by paying them to perform small tasks. So he said this association is a very good one, and it is started by a, you can say, Sanki, paise wala American who pays a lot to only red-headed people. And then Mr. Wilson starts getting greedy because he's already in need of money. Okay, so in this way Spalding convinces Mr. Wilson to go to that particular place and to meet Ross in order to get the job. And so on the appointed day, that is on Monday, these people, they go there, and after fighting through a crowd of red-headed men waiting outside, Spalding and Wilson made their way to the manager, another red-headed man by the name of Duncan Ross, who promptly hired Dr. Wilson. So you can see here all the red-headed men, because it was an advertisement only for red-headed men, isn't it? So, but these people, they fought through the crowd, they pushed the people apart, and they went inside and they met this person called Duncan Ross. Now Duncan Ross himself was a red-headed man, and he was a representative of the red-headed league. And now, in spite of all the rush over there, Mr. Wilson immediately wanted to go back because he thought that he's not going to get the job. But it was Spalding who convinced him that no, you have to try. And surprisingly, Mr. Wilson got the job. And the league paid Wilson to copy pages of the Encyclopedia Britannica. Now the Encyclopedia Britannica is kind of a dictionary, okay, where you get all information about a particular word. You can see pictures also, you can see sentences also, which you cannot see in an ordinary dictionary. Forbidding him from leaving the office for any reason during his 4-hour shift. So he said, you will be working here for 4 hours every day, and during these 4 hours you cannot go anywhere, and I am going to pay you £4 a week, and the work is very easy. He has to just copy the pages of the Encyclopedia Britannica. So there is no brain work involved, there is no physical labor involved. You have to just sit and keep on copying. So this was the work, and Mr. Wilson was very happy because the money was very good, okay, and the work was very light. So Mr. Wilson accepted the work and he began his work. So Wilson says that he worked for the league for 8 weeks and was paid handsomely for his efforts. So he got £4 every week, and he was very happy because the work was also was not very heavy. So Mr. Wilson was happy and everything was going on fine. Until one day, what happened was, when he came in the morning, Wilson arrived at the offices to find that the red-headed league had been dissolved and Duncan Ross was nowhere to be found. Okay, so the red-headed league, suddenly one fine day, the office is shut and there is a big lock on the office, and there is a note which says that the red-headed league is finished suddenly. That is the reason that Mr. Wilson comes running to Sherlock Holmes. Now when Mr. Wilson went immediately to Sherlock Holmes, hoping that Holmes would help him find out whether he had been the victim of a practical joke. So this, children, was a story of the Red-Headed League part 1. So like I told you all, now we will go to the grammar part of the lesson, and we will look at which grammar point we are going to cover in this particular lesson today. So we will talk about modal auxiliaries. So now I will show you the paragraph from your textbook. We will take a look at the paragraph and then we will try and understand what are modal auxiliaries. So according to the textbook, you have read about main verbs and auxiliary verbs. Okay, in standard 6th. You know that auxiliary verbs are what? They are nothing but helping verbs. Now, modal auxiliary verbs, or we call them modal verbs sometimes, these are also helping verbs. But then what is the difference between a modal auxiliary and an auxiliary verb? Modal auxiliaries are used with main verbs to show changes or modifications in the meaning of the main verb. So what do they show? They show possibility, they show ability, they show permission, okay, they show intention, etc. So modal auxiliaries as well as auxiliary verbs, in a way, they are nothing but they are helpers or they are assistants to the main verbs. Now we are reading about so many terms. We are talking about main verbs, we are talking about auxiliary verbs. Of course, we've learnt about them. But even then, let us revise about these things before we move on and look at the meaning and examples of modal auxiliary. So let us first revise the main verb. So what are main verbs, children? All of us have been learning about the parts of speech. We know there is a noun, there is verb, there are adverbs, there are adjectives. So what is a verb? A verb is a word which shows action in a sentence. And there is no sentence which is complete without a verb. Okay, so let us take a look at some examples of main verbs. So main verb is compulsory in all sentences. So each and every sentence should have a main verb. Read the examples along with me now. So you appear tired. So here appear is the main verb. She works very hard. Works is the main verb. I like reading. Like is the main verb. They study in Surat. So Surat is the main verb. And I'm sure you know about the other words also. You know that you is a pronoun, Surat is a proper noun. Alright, so we are not going to focus on that. We are just going to look at the main verb. So what are main verbs? They are the words in the sentence which indicate the action. And no sentence is complete without the main verb. The main verb is compulsory in all the sentences. Let us go on and let us look at the auxiliary verb, or let us revise the auxiliary verb. So let us take some example sentences. I am sorry for what I have done. He is a great all-round player. You are never too old to learn. He was elected by a unanimous vote. The children were playing with a ball. So see, these are words. Am, is, are, was, were. These are the words which help the main verb in the sentence. So these are all called as auxiliary verbs. Alright, so now we know what are main verbs, what are auxiliary verbs. Let us take a look at some sentences in which we will see both of them together. So remember, a helping verb is not compulsory in a sentence. Main verb is compulsory and a helping verb is not compulsory in a sentence. So some of these examples sentences will make you understand or will enable you to understand the meaning of the main verb and auxiliary verb together. So see, she is leaving. So is and leaving, both of them are verbs, but leaving is the main verb and is the auxiliary verb. Alright, look at the next sentence. I have finished my work. So have is one verb, finished is the other one. But finished is the main verb and have is the auxiliary verb. So can you imagine a sentence without the word leaving and without the word finished? The sentence will be incomplete. Alright, the sentence will not have any meaning or sense. But if you drop is and have from here, the meaning of the sentence is complete, though it is grammatically wrong. Alright, so this is an example where we have the main verb and the auxiliary verb in a sentence on the same page. So this is a kind of a revision that we have done for what we have learned in standard 6. Now we will move on and see what are modal auxiliary verbs or the modal verbs that we are going to talk about today. So a modal verb is a type of auxiliary verb that is used to indicate modality. Now modality means different kind of conditions. So likelihood, ability, permission, possibility, all these things are indicated by the use of modal verbs. So what do modal verbs actually do? They do nothing, but they just lend a little bit more sense or meaning to the main verb. Look at this example here. Two of my friends can play guitar. So two of my friends can means what? Now can here is showing the ability of the friends to play guitar. Okay? So this was about modal verbs. Now when I will show you many examples, like we always do in our grammar lessons, we always look at a number of examples so the idea gets clear. See, these are all the words which come under the modal verb category. And remember, it is modal, M-O-D-A-L, and not model. Alright? So look at the words, read them. You can pause the video here and read all these words. So will, would, should, could, may, can, shall, must, might, all these words are the modal verbs. Now we will look at the uses of many of these modal words, not all but many. So once again, auxiliary verbs can be divided into primary auxiliary verbs and modals. Okay, today we are looking at the modals. So the primary auxiliary verbs are the be verbs, that is am, is, was, are and were. Then you have the do verb, that is does, do, did. And you have the have verb, that is has, have, had. So these are the auxiliary verbs. And then you have the modal auxiliary verbs, can, could, may, might, shall, should, will, would, must, etc. So if you pause the video here and take a proper look at this particular image, you will understand what is the difference between auxiliaries and modals. Alright, both of them are part of verbs only. They are types of verbs only, but they are not the main verbs. They are the helpers, and the kind of help that they give is a little bit different. That is why they are put into two different categories. Okay, so can we move on now and look at example sentences? So look at the uses and the examples. So can, very commonly used modal auxiliary verbs we will look at now. Okay, so can, what is the use of can? Can be used for ability, for possibility, when you are informal with someone, when you want to make a polite request, when you want to ask for permission, you use can. Example sentence, one example sentence I will give you, and some you can find out on your own on the internet. I can't swim. Now this is in the negative. Okay, can't shows inability, can shows ability. When you say can't, it means you're saying I cannot swim, so you're not able to swim. Can also be asked in the form of a question, like in the form of asking for permission. So you're saying, can I borrow this ruler? It could also be a request. Okay, you can go to the party. So when you ask your mother for permission to go somewhere and she says okay, so she will use the word can. When she says can, it means you can go. If she says can't, it means you cannot go. So there the permission is denied. What about could? See, could means it could be for a polite request. It could be for certainty, 50%. When you are 50% sure that something is okay, then you could say could. Suggestion. When you want to give a suggestion, you can use the word could. Then you have example sentences here. Could you tell me the time? She could be here by now. So you're not sure. 50% she could be. You could ring them. So that is a suggestion. Might, again, certainty, possibility, okay, which is less than 50. So you have where are they? They might be at the park. What about may? May means polite request, formal permission, certainty. Alright, now there is a difference between certainty 50%, certainty less than 50%. These are all, you know, the way in which you speak. the kind of thought that you have in your mind. Now, look at the example sentences. May we come in? So, polite request. May we come in? You may not speak during the test. Alright, that means you are not allowed to speak during the test. She may not be in. She may not be in means 50% she has not come today. What about should or ought to? Ought to it is. Okay, it is not out to. Advice or deduction. So, for advice you say you shouldn't smoke, you ought to go to the doctor. And deduction is means when you are making a kind of, you can say, guess. They should arrive by 10 or they ought to arrive by 10. Must means when it is an obligation, when you are prohibiting someone, when you are telling someone you must not do this, or when there is a strong certainty. See here, for obligation, I must do my tax returns, that is, I must pay my income tax on time. Prohibition, you mustn't drive on the right. Okay, you are not allowed to do it, you should not do it. Strong certainty, he is not here today, he must be sick. Alright, and lastly we have would. It's a polite request or a preference. For example, you say, would you like a drink? Or I would rather stay in tonight. Means I want to stay in tonight. I prefer to stay in tonight and not go out anywhere. So this now I have read it for you once. I want you to pause the video and read it again. Okay? The more you read, the more you will understand. Now let us go to the examples which are there in the textbook. So in the textbook they've given you some small rules also. Let us take a look at those rules first. So remember the following. We do not use to before a modal. Okay, so you don't say to ought to. You don't say to shall. You don't say to can. Okay, so we never use to before a modal. We do not add ed or ing to a modal. That is, a modal cannot exist in the past tense form or in the present continuous tense form. So you never add ed or ing to a modal. You never say I can't do it, or you never say I canning do it. Okay, so this is one thing. One more thing, we can form questions and negative sentences using modals without using the auxiliaries be, have or do. Now that we see an example, you will understand. So we can form questions using modals, and we can also write negative sentences using modals. Okay, for example, we said can't, shouldn't. So these are all in the negative form. Let us look at the examples which are given in the textbook now as a last part of this lesson. So see, they can swim. So the modal is written in a different color here. And let us try and see what this modal stands for. So here, can stands for ability. May I come in? So the may stands for permission. We shall sing. So the shall stands for a promise or a decision that you have made. Can he swim? Again, can stands here for capability. That is he capable of swimming, or will he just drown in the water? Then you may go. So here may is permission, but you have already given the permission. When it is in a question, may I come in? You're asking for permission. When you're saying you may go, means the permission has been granted. She ought to play. Ought here means an obligation or a duty. That is, she is part of the school football team, and today when the team needs her, she ought to play. That is, it is a duty that she has to play. Let us look at the other examples also from the textbook before we wind up the lesson. So he cannot swim. Cannot shows inability or the ability in the negative. And then you have you must go. So must again here is a compulsion. You have to go. There is no other choice. You must go. Finally, you have they might come. Now might means you know that it is standing for possibility. Alright. So these are all the examples of modal auxiliaries that have been given in the textbook. Now your assignment for today is, you can take a look at the list of modal auxiliaries which I have given you, and you can try and form one sentence each with each of the words. Okay, now let me leave you here with this particular image where you can pause the video and at ease and at leisure, whenever you have time, you can read all these example sentences. We have all done this before. We have discussed the examples also. These are some extra examples for you to discuss. So here we will wind up part 1 of the lesson, The Red-Headed League. We looked at the background to the story, and we looked at the names of some detectives whom we are familiar with. We talked about Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, we talked about Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Watson, and we talked about the story, The Red-Headed League, where there was this gentleman called Mr. Wilson, and how he was cheated, and how he has come now to Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson to get his problem solved. And let us be hopeful that when we do the next part of the story, Sherlock Holmes will be able to solve Mr. Wilson's issue. So on that note, and with the suspense hanging in the air, let me say goodbye for now. We'll meet very soon.
So children, wasn't that a very interesting lesson? I'm sure you learnt a lot of new things in this lesson. If you have liked this video, please hit the like button and also subscribe to my video so that you will get to see all the videos which I keep posting regularly.